imagine that I'm wanting to build a new house or a building. I would never say the first thing I'm going to do is just pour the foundation and then I'm going to figure out what kind of house or building I'm going to build, right? That'd be
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. Why would I do it that way? Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the RevOps Recruiters podcast. We've taken this episode and we broke it into two parts. So this is part one of CRM admin versus RevOps leader. What's the difference? Hope you enjoy it and be sure to check out next week's episode for the second half.
Good morning, Adam. How are you?
I'm good, David, man. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. A little bit under the weather, but I'm excited to be here and have this conversation. I think it's a good one today.
Yeah, for sure. You're here.
I am here. I'm here.
Good on you.
And we're going to the beach this weekend, so I'm excited about that.
Vacation always makes it better, right?
That's right. Get a little bit of that ocean and
exactly.
sea.
Salt air.
Salt.
That's going to help. Yeah.
It's going to clear me right out.
Awesome.
So excited, man. Well, welcome everyone to the RevOps Recruiters podcast, where our mission is to provide insights and best practices around finding, hiring, and retaining top revenue operations talent.
And we're your hosts, David and Adam from RevSearch.
That's
Excited
right.
to be with you.
That's right. So what are we talking about today, Adam?
So really what we want to dive into is the CRM administrator role versus the RevOps role, and contrast those, compare those, and talk about what are the differences between the two.
Yeah. We talk to a lot of companies that they end up telling us they have this mindset of, we just need a CRM admin right now. You know, we have these requirements around the CRM and we're maybe rolling it out. We're just going to do that. I think that's the best move at this point. Then once the groundwork is laid, we'll start thinking about that strategic leader down the line.
Yeah.
Why is that a problem?
I mean, I think the issue there is somewhat twofold. First of all, what we've observed is many times those CRM administrators are very tactical.
Yeah.
So they're great. They know their stuff, right? When it comes to the CRM, they know it. But the problem is oftentimes they're building specifically what's been asked of them to build, and it's very tactical and not very strategic. The issue with that is once you then bring in that RevOps leader in the future, you don't want it to go and undo a lot of the work that they did, right? This person poured time, energy, effort. You put money into the resources of hiring that person, and then you have to go and undo much of the work that they did because it wasn't strategic, it wasn't forward thinking enough.
Yeah.
That's the issue that we see. It's kind of like this. Imagine that I'm wanting to build a new house or a building. I would never say the first thing I'm going to do is just pour the foundation and then I'm going to figure out what kind of house or building I'm going to build, right? That'd be
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. Why would I do it that way? What I'd want to do is I'd say, what am I trying to build? What is this house building structure? What is it going to look like? And based on what it's going to look like, I would pour the foundation to match that structure, right? And that's how we think about RevOps. That's the first problem. The second problem I think oftentimes that we hear from companies is they'll say, well, gosh, isn't salary requirements much different between a CRM administrator and a RevOps leader? The reality is, yes, they are different, but a really good CRM administrator, they have high salary expectations. I mean, we've seen those in the $120,000, $140,000 range.
Right.
And so getting a RevOps manager oftentimes is maybe only 20, 30% more at most. And we feel like they bring a lot of that strategy side of things so that you're building for the future and not just building for today. So to me, those are the problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is it really boils down to two things. Are you more tactical or are you strategic? And so we tend to see the Salesforce admin role, the HubSpot admin role, the CRM role. You're very technical. You're very good at what you do, but it tends to be more tactical. Can this person get to a strategic point at some point and open up that horizon? Absolutely. But out of the box, it's more tactical.
Yes, I would agree.
And so let's break it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to contrast both of the roles across some of the key disciplines that we see within revenue operations and kind of see where they stack up, right?
Yeah, let's lay them side by side. These are our thoughts, things that we've experienced working with companies, working with candidates, talking to folks, right? And ultimately at the end, we hope that you'll decide, the folks that are listening,
right,
what's best for you, but hopefully it'll give you some insights into what we've observed.
Yeah. So let's start with CRM administration. So the admin skill set around the CRM, we see that in both, right? We need that in the RevOps leader.
Right.
And obviously the admin has that. So let's start there. Let's start unpacking that.
Yeah, and I think, if we're being honest, when we look at it, I would say this is this section that clearly the CRM administrator has the skill set and probably even has the advantage, especially someone who has certifications, who's been in a CRM administrator role for a long time. They're going to know, most likely they're going to know all the nooks and crannies of every little possible setup, function, trick, tip that you could deploy inside of a CRM, right? So they're clearly going to have the advantage here. From just a tactical standpoint, if I bring those two people in the room and I say, hey, do this task, and I expect that task can be accomplished in under an hour, probably the certified CRM admin can do it a little faster than the other person, right? Yeah. So I think that's clearly a differentiator between the two. I think the most important thing here is not how quickly can they get the task done. The most important thing that we need is someone who, any requirement that's brought to them, they need to have the ability to ask the question, why are we thinking about doing this, right? So let's say that we need to build a new field in, let's say, Salesforce. We need to create a new field in Salesforce. Here are the questions that I want to ask. Why do we need to create this field, right? What data are we hoping to collect here? And based on that data, what insight are we hoping to gain from that data? Yeah. Who's ultimately going to be responsible for putting this in? And do they have the bandwidth, ability, and do they believe in the reason for collecting this data, right? Yeah. Who's it going to impact? What's the outcome of this data being inputted in here? What are we gonna learn from it later on? And then maybe, can it be automated? Is there any other way to collect this data, right? So what we've observed is oftentimes if someone is a RevOps leader and they have a little more strategy, then they're thinking about those questions. Yeah. Sometimes a CRM administrator is just simply saying, hey, you asked for this field, I'll be happy to build it. I know exactly how to do it. I'll execute it, right? And so that's where maybe someone being strategic has a little more advantage. And what we're not saying is that if you're a CRM admin that you are not strategic. That's not what we're saying. Yeah. But we do observe that folks that are in that role for a long time, sometimes they just end up being more tactical and less strategic. Yeah. And the whole function of RevOps is that you've got to get to the strategy side. Yeah. You're not going to be ultimately long-term success in RevOps if you're not thinking through strategy.
Yeah, the holistic piece. As I'm hearing you talk, all I'm thinking about is the RevOps leader. What are they? They're thinking holistically about this entire backbone, right? This entire blueprint. And so they're thinking about big picture business. What is the business? Always weighing things back to the business, saying what's best for this business. And so when you're making a change, and to, exactly what you mentioned, when that admin makes a change, what is the effect? Because it is a domino effect. I think about dominoes, right? You tip that domino. Sure. What happens? There's a chain reaction. The same thing happens. What are the things that are required upstream, and what are the effects downstream when you've made that change, right? And all the other functions that are going to be affected by it. So we need to have someone thinking holistically, thinking proactively about what are the effects, what are the outcomes, what are the requirements here, right? As opposed to just saying, yes, I think yes, I'll do that, I'll create that, because I'm really good at doing the technical side of the system, of the tool.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah. And I think, are we building with just today in mind?
Yes.
Or what you were describing, are we building with the future in mind, the impact, the what's going to happen upstream, downstream? And so building for today or building for the future. So my recommendation kind of before we move on to the next thing is, if you're evaluating this role within your organization and you are looking at just a CRM administrator, in that, look for someone who is thinking about the why and who's asking that question, making sure that the requirements that they're given make sense for the organization as a whole.
Yeah. And that's the personality. We'll get into that later, but the personality, right? The right leadership level enables you to ask that question.
That's right.
You have to be able to interface with the C-suite And
hey, don't spill all the secrets.
That's right. That's right. So let's one at a time.
That's right.
We'll go to the second function, the second discipline, which is data analysis.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that.
So this is there's kind of two parts to data, right? So when I think about data, there's hygiene, there's the ability to report, to provide dashboards.
Yeah.
There's the ability to extract just ad hoc information. Somebody has a request that says, hey, I'd like to see this set of data, right? And I think from that standpoint, both of these functions should be skilled and equipped in that area. They should be able to pull reports. They should be able to ensure that the data is clean and worthwhile.
Yeah.
They should be able to provide dashboards. They should be able to pull data and pass it over to leaders. Where I believe that a RevOps leader really has an advantage is that they can do all of that. Plus, when we're evaluating RevOps leaders, we're really looking at their ability to not just extract data, but to extract insights from data. So they're looking at a data set and saying, this is what the data is telling me. This is what I could learn. And then even more so, I'm looking for someone who can not only extract the insights, but package it in a way that it can be then presented to those key stakeholders. And in my opinion, a RevOps leader, that is a key function of that RevOps leader. I don't always see that happening within a CRM administrator, right? Yeah. They have the skill set to get the data out of the CRM and maybe even to present the data inside the CRM through dashboards or reports. Right. But walking into this meeting and presenting information and saying, this is what it means and this is what I recommend, we see that really as a RevOps function.
Yeah, 100% agree. Another piece to this is if you are if you're a business that is in a growth stage, you might be looking at investment. You might be dealing with, some sort of investor, private equity, VC firm, and they're going to ask some really hard questions around the data.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ability to present the right data and truthfully, right, and answer some of those requests, answer some of those hard questions, build out those decks, right? Present the data, and not just ship it off, right? Not just ship off a report. This is critical.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Set.
Yeah, many of these companies that we're talking with, they're going through those rounds of funding, getting investment, and that's a crucial part of this role is being able to say, here's a question I've never received before. How do I answer it based on what the data's saying?
Yeah, because you can get to a certain point in a company and not have to answer those questions. And
of course,
that's the reality before that stage comes. But then you get to that stage and you're like, we want to secure this next round.
That's right.
Well, in order to do that, we need to have the whole picture. What is actually going on, right? Not just today, but let's look at some of the historical data. Let's look at what we're doing now, right? And contrast and deep dive. And what do we ask candidates for? We ask them for context.
Sure.
We ask them to visualize, right? Not just do calculations in a spreadsheet, but we want to be able to see the why.
Yeah.
To understand the story.
And I think one final designation that I'd make here is that when we're talking to RevOps leaders, we're really looking for someone who takes responsibility for what the data is saying and not just responsibility for the system that's housing the data.
Great. That's a good point.
And so to me, that's a distinction of the RevOps function is I'm responsible for helping other people in the organization understand what the data is saying.
Right. It's, again, strategic versus tactical.
That's right.
It's taking that advisory approach, right? It's being that consultant to the C-suite and not going, no, this is finger pointed. This is somebody else's responsibility to decipher what this is saying. But no, I'm taking ownership.
I agree.
And so, great point. Great point.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the RevOps Recruiters Podcast. We would love it if you would subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you have comments or suggestions about future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Put that in the comments section on YouTube and we'll check it out there. Finally, if you're looking to make your first or next RevOps hire, we'd love to help. You can connect with us through our website at www.revsearch.io. Thanks so much for listening.